What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Namaste, Namaskaram, Ram Ramji. We're gonna check out, do Indians see themselves as Asians? I think this is pretty simple and straightforward. But tell me what you guys think. Let's see. Let's check the answers that were brought forward here. Let's check it out. And much love to Asian Boss. Make sure to subscribe, guys. Let's go.
Hey bosses, it's Marie from Asian Boss. When you think of Asia, what countries pop into your head first? Perhaps Korea, Japan, or China? But what about India? It seems that in the West, people first think of East Asian countries before South Asian countries like India. For example, recently Malaysian comedian Ronnie Chang joked on The Daily Show that Indians are not Asians in a stand-up comedy skit and how he does not feel represented by Britain's first Asian Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Chang has gotten quite some online backlash for this joke, but how do Indians feel about this? Do they think of themselves as Asians or Indians? And how is India different from the rest of Asia anyway? Our Asian Boss reporter hit the streets of Delhi to find out.
Which are the three countries that come to your mind when you think of Asia?
Asia,
Yeah.
Russia, China, and Hong Kong.
China, Japan.
Being an Indian, I would say India first. China, Korea, Japan.
Sri Lanka, China, Philippines, Singapore.
I'm an Indian, so India first of all, and then Indonesia, and of course our neighbor country Pakistan.
Is India part of Asia or like a separate continent?
I personally believe that it is a part of Asia, but some people they do believe that it should be some different continent. But I don't personally consider.
Hey, yo, hold on, man. I mean, is this really a conversation that people, have? I don't know, man. Is this really a conversation? I've never heard about like other people saying that India might not be a part of Asia or something like that. That is crazy. And also Russia is not. I think there's been a debate when it comes to Russia, because like, is it on the side of European side, or I don't know, but if you ask me, I wouldn't say Russia is part of Asia. Obviously I would think of India, China, Japan, Korea, you go on with them, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so on, man. Anyway, let's go.
I believe that it's a part of Asia, but considering that it's called a subcontinent in itself, the Indian subcontinent, which comprises of all the India and its neighboring countries. So yeah, a lot of people do think of it as separate from Asia, and especially in other countries.
I understand that
Wow.
when somebody in the US or in the West thinks of Asia, you think of Asia as East Asia, right? So China and Korea and all of those places. But no, I think of India as part of Asia.
I would normally prefer to say that India is separate. Technically it's Asia, but I would say that culturally and otherwise as well, it's like a separate continent in itself. If you look at the food or the culture and everything else, then it's like a whole different vibe, Like you cannot compare it with, like, for example, China, Japan, or South of Korea.
Do you personally see yourself as Asian or Indian?
I would prefer to be as an Indian.
First of all, I'll say I'm an Indian and an Asian afterwards.
Specifically Indian, but Asians.
If someone asked
Specifically
me,
in-
like,
Okay.
what are you? I would say Indian. I wouldn't think of Asian.
Indian, and I feel proud to be called or known as Indian.
I think I see myself as an Indian. I would not identify myself with someone who's, say, from any Southeast Asian country, or any Chinese person, Indonesian person from Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand.
If any foreigner would call you Asian, would you be offended?
Not really, because I am an Asian. I am a part of this continent, so I won't be offended.
There was this popular Malaysian comedian Ronnie Chang. He recently said on a very popular US talk show that joked about Indians not being Asians in a stand-up comedy kit. Let us show you a clip of what people are talking about.
The new Prime Minister of the week, Rishi Sunak. And I know everyone is really excited that this is the first Asian Prime Minister, but let's be clear, Indians are not Asians, okay? Okay, they're still people, great people, they're just not Asian people, okay? No, answer me this. If this guy is Asian, how come when he became Prime Minister, I felt absolutely nothing? I mean, when I was down at Dim Sum Palace this morning, me and the fellas were like, oh shit, that's me up there. I feel seen. I love how Indians try to have it both ways, like being Indian and Asian. Pick a lane, okay? Yeah, I bet if I show up in a Bollywood film, I'm just gonna blend right in, right? Because we're all just one people just having a good time.
It's his perspective, I think. It's his perspective, I believe.
You know what? In a way, I kinda understand what he's talking about, okay? But it's like, of course, it's the way he views things. I kinda understand. I kinda see his viewpoint, where he's coming from, alright? Like when he said, if I'm gonna shop in a Bollywood shop, am I just gonna blend in? No, of course not. I mean, like, they'll think you're from China, Philippines, Korea or something like that. That's what he's saying. Okay, I see what he's saying. Okay, I understand. His viewpoint, I understand it. It's a bit, but still, if you're talking about Asia as a whole, then yeah, of course, you're part of Asia, man.
But I feel Indian and Asian is the same thing for me. We are part of the continent, of course we are Asian. There is no doubt about it. It is a fact, it is not about people's understanding.
Exactly, it's just a fact.
I think it's funny. Yeah. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. I think of all these countries as like culturally similar.
Exactly.
But if you think from his point of view, it's right that if he looks up at Rishi Sunak or someone like that, he cannot really relate to them, you know. So that's why I would say that he's right.
Bruh, she's clever, man. She got the brains.
I felt that that kind of stupidity in that. This guy, he's saying that Rishi Sunak is not an Asian, he's an Indian. So Asia is a continent. China, Malaysia, Japan, India, they all are part of that Asian continent. So in that way, we all are Asian.
It is a comedy skit after all, so do you find it funny or rather feel offended?
No, I find it funny. Yeah. I think people are getting offended very easily these days.
Thank you.
You should take it in a lighter sense. It's funny, but I think saying that Indians are not Asians and saying that Indians don't like being called Asians are two different things.
Yeah.
So if you say Indians are not Asians, it excludes them from the whole continent. You don't have a monopoly over the continent, right? So that's the difference I feel. And I completely understand where he's coming from, because if I see some person who doesn't look like me get into a power position of authority, I won't really relate with him. I relate with Rishi Sunak because he looks like me. If he didn't look like me, I probably would not relate with him. So I don't really mind this.
I think it's funny. He made a joke, and I think it's a good joke. He's a great comedian. He's playing to the American stereotype of Indians versus Asians. In America, you think of Asians as East Asians, and you think of Indians and Pakistanis and Bangladeshis as Indians.
Right.
He's just playing to that stereotype. It's got no global context. I don't think any Indian should ever worry about it. And I actually think it's a funny joke. He's quite hilarious.
Man, I really love people
when you
like
travel
this.
overseas, have you ever been called Asian by foreigners, or do they call you entirely different, something entirely?
I haven't been called Asian. I've been called Indian, in fact. Yeah, I have.
Where was that?
I think it was in the US.
I was never called Asian, no. People try to guess, and normally they don't really get it in the first turn. So I have been called like from the Middle East or from North Africa or even Spain or Italy. But yeah, usually they don't immediately think of India, you know.
I think people would think of me as Indian. I don't think people would think of us as Asian. They would think of us as Indian, but that's their ignorance, right?
But you see, I mean, guys, tell me this. You see the difference in like the way people view things, right? It's obviously going to be different. I understand that. And also like the way all the guys that were showing the video right here, they also relate to the video differently. Some see it as maybe offensive, like, oh man, this is stupid, this guy is supposed to just know. If, of course, it's a fact that India is part of the Asian continent, even if some people, and even if it is called the Indian subcontinent, something like that. What he meant, it was a joke, first of all. Secondly, what he meant was like what this guy with glasses said, like people, this stereotype type of thing where people have India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka as a whole, like as a one huge bunch of people like that, and then they have Japan, China, Korea as another part. So that's just how it has been. But of course, it is a fact that India is part of the continent and they are Asians, man. That's just how it is. Anyway, let's continue with the video and we'll see what else we have. Let's go.
Person can belong to the country they belong to and to the continent they belong to.
Exactly.
It's harder to think of yourself as part of the continent though, because Asia is such a diverse continent as opposed to actually every continent, even Europe. It's so diverse. Like the European part of Russia is so different from British people, right? Like English people. So people don't think of themselves within the context of their continent. They think of themselves within the context of the country they live in.
What are the stereotypes you encounter as an Indian when you are overseas?
Personally, I have not witnessed any typical Indian stereotypes, but more towards oh, you're supposed to be good at math, because Asian people are supposed to be good at math. You play an instrument.
And computers.
These kind of things I've seen. I suck at both, so.
So I went for a conference in Germany, and I met some people from Spain who actually thought that people in India still have elephants and horses.
Mad.
And this guy really seriously asked me does your father own elephants or something like that? And I was like, no, that doesn't happen anymore. And then about the cows on the streets, which is also not true. I mean, not all the time.
Where do you think these stereotypes come from?
I think they are more, when Britishers were here in India, and the situation of the country at that time, and it was probably when they went back, they took some ideas with them and this somehow spread. So people who have never been to India, they are just relying on these 200-year-old stories. So I think that's where it came from.
Everybody thinks that every Indian is great at Bhangra, is great at dancing, and that's not really true, right? I suck at it, for example. So, I mean, that's funny. You just kind of expect that people would be good at dancing because any Bollywood videos that get forwarded around are videos of people, dancing really well. And I mean, Bollywood's huge, right? I mean, if there ever was a stereotype, it was a positive stereotype. People expect a lot out of you as an Indian. They expect that you've studied a lot.
Right.
They expect that you've gone to good schools. They expect that you probably are a hard worker. When they look around, oh, there's a problem over here, maybe we need a doctor. Everybody looks at the Indian guy sitting over there who might actually solve their problem, right? So I don't think it's a real problem. I think any stereotype comes from lack of awareness, lack of exposure. If somebody thinks of every Indian as Paki and they think of that as a negative thing, well, that's probably because they don't have an Indian friend. When they do, they won't. They won't think that way.
How much do you think foreigners know about India?
They don't know much about India. They know that they have ruled India for almost 200 years. That's all they know.
Economically, we are becoming strong. We are exporting few things. Politically as well, we are one of the key member of different organizations. So I don't think they don't know about India. If you tell them that you are Indian, they will know where are you coming from, where is India, and who is a prime minister and everything.
I don't think there's a problem of people being aware of India. We're a very strong presence in the world, a very strong presence, and I think it's only going to grow. When you go to the UK, there's nobody who doesn't know India for so many obvious reasons, right? It's only a matter of time where everybody's very, very acutely aware of India because, I mean, look at the number of leaders that are Indian.
I don't think people who have never been to India, they know a lot. If they have Indian friends or colleagues or something like that, then they are really exposed. But otherwise, I don't think people really know much about India.
But does that make sense to you when India is arguably the most populous country in the world? Why is there so little awareness about India on the global scale?
That's true because Indians are everywhere, right? So everywhere we go, there are so many Indians, and this is also a question that puzzles me. So probably when we go abroad, we are taking our culture with us, but probably we are so overwhelmed with the Western culture that we are more getting into it rather than expressing our own, I think, and that's why people are not really aware.
The major source that people get to know about a country is through the popular culture, is through songs and music and through TV shows and movies. Right. And I don't think there are a few movies and a few shows that have reached that level where it has a global audience, but I don't think that kind of reach we have yet.
What do you want that foreigners should know about India that their, media fails to portray, fails to tell that what India is?
As comparing other countries, other developing countries, India is growing at a very fast pace. They should know this.
People generally think India is very unsafe for women. They make it seem to be like a very bad place. I'm not saying that it's safe. It's not safe, but at the same time, it's not as scary as they portray it out to be in the movies and stuff.
They only portray it about the poor people in India and how they are living their life. You will find similar examples in US and UK as well. You have to tell both sides of stories.
Thank
how
you.
India is growing, how India is becoming nuclear power, different achievement in different worlds. So not only science, so many sports as well, and there are multiple things where India is doing well.
Not a lot of people
Agreed.
know that there are so many different languages in India. So I was surprised that this is like a very basic fact, but not a lot of people know about this, and they don't know that all of these languages are so different from one another that you cannot really guess, or if you know one, you cannot read the other one,
Like everybody makes fun of arranged marriage. And then when you sit down with a Western person or whatever and explain to them, well, it's not really on gunpoint by your parents, right? It's a cool option. So they're like, oh, okay, I would like that too. I wish my parents would get off their ass and do something for me, right? So, talk about body odor. Well, now people think of, oh yeah, there's a lot of body odor with Indians, right? Well, that's because there wasn't freaking deodorant for the last 100 years over here, right? So now there is, and that's not a real problem anymore. Whatever stereotype you can kind of think of, there's always an answer to why, and if you sat down and explained to people, I think they would get it.
That is amazing. I really loved this watching this video, man, and it got to help me understand more. And also, most of these things I already know, but yeah, man. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. There were some people who really were open-minded, some were a bit closed, but above all, India is different, and a lot of stereotypes that people have are wrong. They really need to come and experience the country more, and then they can understand what exactly is about India. But anyway, I appreciate you all. Take good care of yourselves. Make sure to subscribe down below. Much love. Peace.